and welcome into the Bench Mob. We are back, Scrubs, here to talk about some playoff basketball now that the season has officially ended. I guess I speak for all of us when I can say that. We're pretty excited. Am I right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Bursting with enthusiasm,
yes.
Jonathan.
If you can't tell from our subdued tones.
At 12:30 in the morning on Friday.
3:30 in the morning.
In Eastern
where
time.
It counts.
Friday. Gotta get down on Friday.
5:30 p.m. Guam time, where it actually counts. We're pretty excited.
I think the entire win that argument.
Let's get back to basketball.
We're going to jump in here. Our first discussion that we're going to have is about
playoff time.
Playoff time, and most particularly, what series we are most looking forward to watching on television.
Maybe we should run through the matchups.
Okay,
does anyone have that?
Yeah, I got it up right now.
You can do that, Mr. Jones.
All right, in the Eastern Conference, Indiana will play Atlanta. Miami will take on the Charlotte Bobcats. The Toronto Raptors will take on the Brooklyn Nets. And the Chicago Bulls and Washington Wizards, the Battle of Michael Jordan.
Interesting.
In the Western Conference...
The Battle of Bad Michael Jordan.
Right. The Bulls...
I thought it was... No. Battle, 0.5.
Yes. And in the Western Conference, we have the Spurs and the Mavs, the Thunder and the Grizzlies, the Los Angeles Clippers and the Golden State Warriors, and finally, Houston, Portland. The Battle of Clyde Drexler.
There are many teams there are plenty of contenders this year. It's definitely going to be one of the more exciting playoff years. That's just me, though. But all right, guys, let's jump into it. Which first round matchup are we most excited looking forward to watching the most?
Well, John, personally, I am most looking forward to the Los Angeles Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. Mm-hmm. Two fast-moving teams, two teams that basically score at will and have this season. It's gonna be fun seeing the backcourt matchup. Steph Curry and Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. That'll be interesting to watch, in addition to watching David Lee and Blake Griffin battle down low.
Actually, David Lee is currently injured.
Is he? Is he up for the first round?
I'm pretty sure he's injured. I can pull that up right now, but you can keep discussing.
But either way, even these two teams are, even as a 3 seed and a 6 seed, 6 games separate them, but I don't think they're that far apart from each other skill-wise. I think the Clippers are just better at winning games.
That's important in this game.
That sounds bad, but the Warriors have as much skill, I think, in terms of offensive skill, as most teams in this league.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit because that's what, just looking at the roster, you'd think that. But then when you actually look at the production, there's something like 12 points better when Stephen Curry's on the floor. They're so reliant on his floor spacing. A guy like Andrew Bogut hasn't necessarily been a great offensive player.
And
David Lee, who's also potentially out, needs to work off ISOs a lot. Klay Thompson, someone who's almost regressed and become more of a pure shooter. He had a little bit of like a pump fake and drive game last year. He hasn't really developed that all that well. Iguodala is obviously a huge addition for them. But I honestly think this team, without their front court, isn't going to be much of a challenge. Still a great series because those teams don't particularly like each other. But I think the Clippers, with Doc Rivers and the added depth of getting someone like J.J. Redick back and adding Danny Granger to the fold, it's not going to be a super competitive series. The only thing that could make it that way is Steph just completely going off,
which he's very
well in the realm of possibility, given his production in last year's playoffs.
And
all that being said, it should be incredibly entertaining, but I think the Clippers win in about 5 games.
Just to clarify on David Lee's current injury status, he's most recently had nerve damage, but he should go to the playoffs. The one person that's not going to play in the playoffs, supposedly, is Andrew Bogut,
right,
with a fractured rib.
Yeah, so I think he's done for however long their run is, correct?
I'm pretty sure.
Probably out for the playoffs.
Just one keynote to highlight on before we move on to the next series is how the Clippers take advantage of the inside now that Andrew Bogut isn't there. Will DeAndre Jordan continue to play as he's played, or will his form alter?
Well,
we'll find out. With a smaller lineup, I don't know. We'll see.
Do you want input on that?
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, why not?
Tell people what
Jump in.
Okay.
Give the people
I just want to say something very interesting that Doc Rivers has been doing all year. Obviously, when you upgrade from the worst coach in NBA history, take a bow, Vinny Del Negro, there's going to be... Your team is going to get significantly better.
Sorry, Vinny, if you're listening.
He's up there. But anyway, your team gets significantly better, but... What Doc Rivers has done this year is, this was a point made on the BS report. A lot of coaches, like Phil Jackson, coach negatively through the media. Doc has actually done the opposite and been incredibly positive about his team and basically trying to convince people DeAndre Jordan is the second coming of Bill Russell, which of course he isn't. But just that psychological impact of being encouraged instead of last year when Del Negro would constantly take Jordan out in crunch time. He'd play something like 40-something minutes, like I think this might be wrong, but something like that in the whole fourth quarters of every season. And now he's being hyped up as like this great center. You could tell his confidence is at a different level. He's rebounding incredibly well.
His free throw percentage has gone up from 39% to 43%. But it's an improvement.
Thank you, John. Blake has gone from like a borderline all-star to a legitimate MVP candidate. This team is just, I can't emphasize just how much better they are this year. I think they make a long playoff run.
I say Clippers in 7. That's just me.
7.
I think 6.
5.
Okay.
5, 6, 7.
I think the Warriors still.
I want the most exciting series possible. That's why I'm going 7.
I'm hoping for 7. I don't think we're going.
All right, my series to watch is going to be the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs. Pretty much based purely on nostalgia. How many more times are we going to watch Dirk and Timmy face up? Like they're still, I mean, obviously not in their prime anymore, but they're still like high scorers, capable of just unleashing.
Well, this season I think we'll see 4 more games of Dirk versus Tim Duncan.
4? You don't think he squeezes out 1?
Yeah. I think we get one vintage Dirk performance.
Yeah, I think there's at least
He's
one.
been great. He's been a borderline MVP candidate this year.
He's scoring nearly 22 a game. Monte Ellis is on a roll, and I mean, obviously the Spurs haven't really cared, but they're on a 3-game losing streak. So I don't know. Doesn't mean anything.
Let's put it the way it is. The Spurs bench is on a 3-game losing streak.
It's true, but you know what? I'm so excited for it.
Which is surprising in and of itself.
It's true.
And I mean, Dirk might be the highlight of that team, but the Mavs are still the 8th highest scoring team in the NBA. The Spurs are the 6th, which is close. The big difference there is the Spurs defense is locked down compared to the Mavericks defense, which is kind of non-existent from time to time. But it's sure to be fun to watch those guys face off.
Now that it's time for the playoffs, the Spurs it's time to get down the business on the road back to the
Pop gave
finals.
a 47-word end of the season press conference, so he's in playoff.
Yeah.
He's in good form.
He's in good form.
He's top notch.
Another series that
he skipped a couple of verbs just to cut it down.
Yeah. Another series that we didn't mention that now that I look at it could be interesting. It might be Oklahoma City, Memphis.
I'm going to talk about that later. You're stealing.
We're gonna.
All right. We're jumping ahead of ourselves. Sorry.
Bambi, what's your series pick?
My series pick. Well, I'm gonna kind of jump in on you guys. I wanted to pick something from the East to be a little original, but it's such a crap show right now that I don't even want to think about those teams playing each other. Indiana, Atlanta in particular makes me just nauseous. But I'm going to say just one quick point on Dirk Nowitzki. That he had a game when they played OKC, and him and Kevin Durant went back to back on shots like multiple times throughout the fourth quarter. And it just shows the level the guy can still reach when he really wants to. He's just someone who can score in any single situation and shoot over someone. I can see him just absolutely dominating the Spurs and maybe making that slightly competitive. If I have to go East, I think one series that's potentially a little bit interesting is Brooklyn-Toronto. Toronto's been a team all season.
Don't step on my toes.
Since Rudy, I'm doing the same thing that you almost said. But since Rudy Gay left, they've been a really interesting team. And Brooklyn, since the Brook Lopez injury, has found themselves as just a tall, weird perimeter-based passing team.
Putting Paul Pierce at the 4.
Yeah, really doing some interesting stuff.
Gavin, you're telling me they're the basketball equivalent to you?
Sure. Tall, weird, lanky, good at shooting a basketball.
Well, any 3 on 4 ain't bad.
Incredibly skinny.
Not allowed to talk, John. I own the 3-point shootout title at the moment. Anyways, I think that series could potentially be interesting. John, was going to you.
Also ready to keel over.
All right, my comment on the Spurs Mavs series. I agree with Gavin in that Dirk has the propensity to go off. I'm going to give them a little credit. Spurs in 5. But my playoff series that I am looking forward to the most is actually Houston Rockets and the Portland Trailblazers. Both have identical records, 54 and 29. I'm looking forward to the matchup between LaMarcus Aldridge and whoever Kevin McHale decides to put on him, whether it be Terrence Jones. I don't think it's a good idea. Dwight Howard, who knows? Omer Sheik, I don't know.
It's a possibility.
Also, the somewhat interesting point guard matchup between close personal friend of the podcast, Jeremy Lin, and Damian Lillard. Will Damian Lillard take the next step into becoming a superstar? We'll see
playing
in the
against
first round.
Jeremy Lin. Yeah. Good chance of making it.
I'm
posing the
his
question.
defense from the Knicks.
I think Damian Lillard tiny bit overrated.
With both teams' ability to shoot the three, it could make for some very high-scoring games. And of course, James Harden at the end of games is always fun to watch.
I've been a Trailblazers hater all season.
Yes, you have.
Not to make the playoffs.
I thought
Jinxing the Suns.
I thought they would tank so hard that they missed the playoffs. And for a while there was...
When they were the 1 seed, you were not convinced and said they would still maybe miss the playoffs.
Shout out to close personal friend Terry Stotts.
They were on their way, but then they kind of pieced it together again at the end of the season. So,
Unfortunately.
yeah, unfortunately for the Suns. Rest in peace.
All right, guys, we're going to go on to our next question here. In a different vein from exciting playoff series, what is one playoff series that you guys see has the potential to be a first-round upset?
All right.
Anyone want to jump in here?
I'm going to kick off this one again, and I'm going to go with the Brooklyn Celtics are going to take down the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, interesting name. Almost like the Miami Pacers.
The second half, since New Year's, Brooklyn has been... They've found themselves. They've been the team that people thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. I mean, more or less.
Okay.
They're not as dominant as people thought they could be, but they've played very well since New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. Mm-hmm. Toronto's also played well, but I think the playoff experience that Brooklyn has is going to be a huge key. Toronto, the Eastern Conference between the 3rd seed and the 7th seed, only separated by 5 games. That's a really close competition. All these teams can beat each other on any given day, and I think Brooklyn is one of those teams that'll be able to take it to Toronto. I think Brooklyn in 5.
Kevin Garnett really knows how to ramp up his screaming at inanimate objects during playoff time. He's ready for the challenge.
Looking forward to that.
You mean Charlie Villanueva?
I'm going to step in here and go counterclockwise. The playoff series that I think could be a first-round upset. Pretty low-key playoff series considering the the bracket. One series that wasn't really mentioned: Chicago Bulls and the Washington Wizards battle the Michael Jordans. But I think
go John Wall.
I think this is going to be the coming out party for John Wall. Washington won the season series with Chicago 2-1, and against the Bulls, according to the stats that I have here, John Wall has averaged 20 points, almost 2 steals, and 8 assists. So I think that he plays pretty well against this team in the regular season. Who knows, in the playoffs it's a completely different atmosphere. I feel like just position-wise, Washington has the matchups that are favorable with guys in the post such as Nene and Marcin Gortat.
Are you saying that Nene and Marcin Gortat are better than MVP candidate Jokic Noah?
I'm not leading them. I'm saying that they're the matchups that could be favorable to somewhat neutralize Joakim Noah.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Wizards in 6. Joakim Noah will lead the Bulls by himself to 2 very good wins. I think it's going to be a close series overall. But in terms of the other positions, if Bradley Beal, Trevor Booker, and Trevor Ariza, the Trevors, if they decide to show up, I believe that they're shooting.
I wonder if Otto Porter even bothers going to the games.
I don't know.
Has he gone to any?
Anthony Bennett has clouded it up, but he was absolutely one of the worst.
Kevin Serafin is. I think Kevin Serafin is just turned invisible. I don't know.
Otto Porter wakes up every day and thanks God that Anthony Bennett exists. He has sleep apnea. All right, I'm gonna go with one that I don't totally believe in, but I've kind of just. Doing some reading, I've kind of convinced myself of maybe potentially Memphis over OKC. We all unfortunately watched a dominant effort from them at US Airways, beating the Suns.
That was a bad name.
And rest in peace again.
R.I.P. Yeah, and really Memphis, since with Marc Gasol in the season, they're 40-19, which is a record that would have gotten them home court advantage if they would have had him over the course of the season. They've been in playoff mode for so long, and I know it's not like one game like the NFL, but I see like a little bit of like the team playing for the playoffs for so long, intensity coming in, maybe winning the first game, winning the second. They have a guy in Mike Conley who's shown over the last 2 games who can be really aggressive at the end of games and hit really big shots. Yeah. Maybe outplay Russell Westbrook if Russ tries to do too much. Obviously, Memphis won the series last year. It was without Westbrook. I don't totally believe Memphis can win, but with the passing and post play of Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, and the shooting of Mike Miller, which we all found, I know, incredibly annoying against the Suns, I think they could potentially make it a 7-game series.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was going to bring up the point earlier. Memphis's defense is so good that I think they can, neutralize a little bit. Like, they're not going to stop Kevin Durant. And
He's
they're
the
not-
best player right now.
Right.
They're not really going to stop Kevin Durant, but it's pretty frustrating when they can just throw it inside and Randolph or Gasol could pretty much score at will.
Yeah,
I think
between the two
this
of
is
them.
the one series where Kendrick Perkins is an asset instead of a rotting 300-pound unit.
Do you think Hashim Thabit sees the floor for a single minute in this series?
Actually, no.
I don't think they let him on the bench.
I think Steven Adams actually will play a big part in
the
this
key-
series.
Nick Collison, underrated for years. He's been good in all the
Yeah,
playoffs.
I think both of them coming off the bench will be.
They have enough.
Surge stepped up a little this year.
They have enough bodies in the middle that can help slow down.
They match up
Memphis'-
relatively well, which we learned the Suns, having lost all 4 games against them this season, unfortunately didn't.
Yeah, they have the bodies inside. They can slow down Randolph and Gasol, and hopefully that can. Hopefully for Memphis, they can take that.
Okay, so my pick for the chance for an upset is big wild card here, folks. Bobcats over the Heat. I'm not sure if any of you would ever have expected that. I'm not sure I really believe in it, but here's why I think it has a chance.
This is the
Guys,
first
thank
time
you,
those
Junior.
2 words have been mentioned in this podcast: Bobcats and Heat.
Bobcats? Isn't that one word? Oh, Bobcats and Heat.
Bobcats and
Okay.
Heat, yeah.
That's
Okay,
weird.
that's great.
No,
Okay, but anyways,
John's frustrated.
so the Bobcats Heat head-to-head record, not looking so good for Bobcats this year. They have not beat them yet. However, one occasion they lost by only 1, and another occasion they took them to overtime. And if I know anything about ex-UConn player Kemba Walker, is he shows up when it counts and he can win big games. And I think that he and Bobby McBuckets are going to be able to
Josh
win some games.
McBob, formerly of the Los Angeles Lakers, formerly of
If
the...
Bob has to hit big buckets, I think the series is a sweep.
Okay.
And then, wait, quick comment. I think I look for Al Jefferson, who's been playing incredibly late, to have a big impact on the Heat team that, for all their additions over the years, with Greg Oden seeming like he's not going to play in this playoffs, doesn't have a big guy.
What? Greg Oden's not healthy at the end of the
He
season?
hasn't been playing for weeks, so I don't.
My
I don't know.
My only comment is very short. You know who else shows up when it counts? LeBron James and Dwayne
Historically,
Wade.
sometimes is the answer.
Recently, LeBron James and Dwayne
LeBron
Wade.
James
I think LeBron's
is.
burnt out. Why did they play him such big minutes this year? They got the 2 seed anyways. They could have lost another 10 games and still gotten the 2 seed. I don't know why you play LeBron 40 minutes
Okay,
a game.
Bambi's
That's
really
so
passionate on this
stupid.
subject.
I want the Heat to lose. but
Okay,
it's still annoying.
okay. So, like, here's some of the matchups. Who's going to guard Kemba? Is it going to be D Wade? He's slow. Is it anyone?
It's Mario Chalmers.
Norris Cole and Rio Chalmers.
Can they really neutralize Kemba when it counts?
I think
Yes.
they're both pretty good
Yes.
defensive guys.
Yes, they
Yeah.
can.
And I think they're going to have a lot of help from. I think LeBron is going to turn into superhuman mode, and I think they're going to have a lot of help.
too,
Yeah,
but
LeBron has no one to cover. LeBron's just
The
going
whole
to
thing is
fool around and guard Kemba Walker.
Miami's defense excels when they blitz the pick and roll. Really good point guards can get around that, so it's going to be a challenge for Kemba. It's going to be one that's going to really tell you how good of an NBA player he can be.
here's where he proves himself. He proves me right.
Interesting.
Mark my words.
This is all about players stepping up in our matchups. Quite the interesting synopsis. And we're going to lead you guys out with some nice music.
Thanks for hanging out, Scrubs.
Rest in peace, Suns. We'll be back soon.
Final time.